Two of our favorite electric vehicles right now are the Ford Mustang Mach-E and the Tesla Model Y. And oh, look at that. We have high performance versions of both of them today. The Ford Mustang Mach-E GT and our own Tesla Model Y Performance that we've owned for over a year. And in that time, it has decimated almost everything we've put up against it in a drag race, including our own Shelby GT500. But what about the Shelby's electric cousin? In this video, we'll compare the Mach-E GT and the Model Y Performance on our test track, in 0 to 60 in braking, and we'll reveal their real-world range as measured on our standardized EV loop. Up until now, the Model Y has stamped out the old guard pretty definitively. But what happens when there's an even newer kid on the block? Let's find out. But before we get into that, make sure to click like and subscribe so that you are the first to see all of our Edmunds videos when they go up. And if you're looking to sell your car, go to edmunds.com/sellmycar to get a cash offer right now. Now, I'm gonna be honest with you. I grew up with Mustangs, Fox body GTs to be exact. And throughout high school and college, that was my jam. And I've got to say, 18-year-old me would be looking at this right now and thinking, oh, yeah. The Mach-E GT starts right around $60,000. And this one goes even higher. That's because it's a performance edition. For that, you get more torque, 20-inch wheels, and an adaptive suspension called MagneRide. That puts the final price right up against $70,000 as tested, including destination. That's pretty pricey, and it's turned my 18-year-old self right off. But for the money, you get 130 extra horsepower and 200 extra pound-feet of torque over the Mach-E. 0 to 60 is a Ford estimated 3.5 seconds. We'll see about that. And range is an estimated 260 miles. We'll see about that. Now, the funny thing is, the Mach-E GT lines up eerily similarly to the Model Y Performance, and that's no coincidence. Ford is trying to take Tesla's lunch money here, and they're not being shy about it. I did not have Teslas in high school because Tesla did not exist yet, because I am old. But some of you grew up dreaming about owning something as cool as this, our Tesla Model Y dual motor Performance, and I do not blame you one bit. When we bought it, starting price was around $61,000. And with options like full self-driving and the performance upgrade, which gets 21-inch wheels, better brakes, and a lower suspension, that brought the final price to around $69,000. At the time, it came with an estimated 280 miles of range, but Tesla now claims 303. So how does the Mach-E GT stack up? My high school pride is on the line. We measured the Mach-E GT Performance accelerating from 0 to 60 miles per hour in 3.8 seconds, which is just behind the 3.7 seconds we achieved in the Model Y Performance. Now, coming to a stop from 60 miles an hour, the Mach-E GT Performance needed 106 feet, compared to the 108 feet required for the Model Y Performance. When it comes to real-world range, we took the Mach-E GT Performance on our Edmunds EV range test, a standardized route from our office in Santa Monica, to see how far it could go on a single charge. At the end of the run, we saw 272 miles of range. That outperforms its EPA rating of 260 miles. When we put the Model Y Performance through that same test, we squeezed 263 miles out of a charge. But at that time, Tesla claimed 291 miles of total range. Now, Tesla has since increased its estimate to 303 miles. Let's see how they handle when we throw them into some curves. We're on our test track now in the Mach-E GT. The performance version comes with summer tires, and that makes a big difference when it comes to available grip. Now, unique to the GT is unbridled extend mode. You have unbridled drive mode, just like in the regular Mach-E, that's kind of the sport mode. But with the GT, you get unbridled extend, and that sends more power to the rear wheels. It tweaks the traction control, and it sends additional cooling to the battery. The downside is it affects your performance a little bit. Your 0 to 60 will be a touch slower. But the upside is using less energy now equals more laps at the track. The other thing is the MagneRide suspension. Now that's an adaptive suspension that can automatically adjust and react to the way that you're driving it. It gives the Mach-E better balance and helps you carry more speed through the corners. Now there's a lot of question about whether the Mach-E should really be called a Mustang, but with power like this, it's a little bit wild, a little bit unpredictable. It requires finesse. That sounds pretty Mustang-y to me. The biggest difference is all this electric thrust. Whoa, there's never been a Mustang like that before. You know what's definitely not a Mustang? A Tesla Model Y. This is just a completely different driving experience. It feels crisp, it feels quick. But most of all, it feels like you're being sucked forward by a black hole. It feels like the power is being made by machine learning and DevOps and a bunch of other tech words that I don't understand at all. And I get that some people want that. They want to feel like they're ahead of the curve. Sometimes being ahead of the curve means you're going to hit a few bumps. And at these speeds, the Model Y hits a few bumps. This is a very fast road car, but that doesn't necessarily make it good at handling track stuff like this. It gets a little bit squirrely in the turns and pretty easily becomes unbalanced when you're throwing it into things at speeds like this. And you can always just use the torque to pull you out of it. But there's no track mode like other Teslas. There's no unbridled extend like the Mach-E that would really take this to another level. What you do get is a lot of creaking in the body panels at these speeds. It makes it feel kind of shaky and unsettled. But the one thing that nobody can deny is that this thing is seriously fast. Oh, yeah. On the track, the Mach-E GT is a more complete package. Its handling, braking, and responsiveness feel cohesive and sharp in a way that makes this Model Y feel messy by comparison. However, we have a big problem. We noticed that the Mach-E GT was losing power at the tail end of its acceleration runs. Then it was having trouble putting down power out of certain corners, and then it was struggling to get power all over the track. So what gives? Well, it's because the Mach-E GT only ever gets 5 consecutive seconds of full power. That's according to Ford, in order to preserve the battery life. Unfortunately, that makes the Mach-E GT really disappointing to drive after a while, if you're trying to go fast, or even just have a little fun on a track. I mean, is that supposed to be a GT model or not? And on top of that, a GT performance model at that price with a 5-second limit? I mean, in our minds, that's unacceptable. I'd rather be in a Tesla, messy as it is. One of the nice things when you spend a little extra money on something like a GT model is you want to see some features that let you know you have an elevated experience over a base version. And in the Mach-E GT, you get that. There are GT logos and insignias throughout the interior, and one of the big pluses is upgraded seats. There's nicer leather, a grippy kind of fake suede material on your back that helps you stay in place through, well, corners like this. And then these big bolstering wings up here on the shoulders. These are really similar seats to what's in the standard Mach-E, but these small changes go a long way toward making you feel a little bit more special while you ride around. Now, the downside is that some of the materials in here aren't exactly what I would call premium. They've got interesting textures, or there's a cool little design element to it, but they kind of just look like standard plastics from the regular model. I understand this is a Mustang, but at $70,000, I'd rather see something different when I look around. Now, I do wish there were more adjustments to the seats, and especially for this money. It's a little bit hard to get completely comfortable in my driving position because the seats just don't go up and down very much. The steering wheel doesn't telescope in and out a whole lot. It would be nice to have just a little more versatility, especially in something that's supposed to be driven hard. If you want to know more about how the interiors stack up and daily usability works in both of these cars, check out the video that Carlos did a couple of months ago where he compared the standard Mach-E and the standard Model Y to a Volkswagen ID4. He did a great job of breaking down materials, interior construction, and all the available space that you have. And that video can be really helpful to you because where the Mach-E and the Mach-E GT have a lot of interior differences, it's not really the case for the Model Y. Upgrading to the Model Y Performance or its Performance Upgrade don't really net you a lot of interior changes or improvements. The seats in here are adequately cushioned for comfort, but if you're going on long trips, you will start to feel hard spots after a while. And also, this simulated leather isn't the most breathable stuff, so it can get a little swampy in here. Now, as far as ride comfort, this has not been the strongest area for Tesla in recent years. Like we said, upgrading to the Model Y Performance gets you 21-inch tires. And if you're going over just normal cracks and bumps in the road, it can feel pretty jarring. And going over actual potholes can be scary. I'm not kidding. Getting to 21-inch wheels is signing up for punishment. The Model Y also emits some very noticeable squeaks and creaks through the body panels in here. Now, we've had this car for over a year, and so that's to be expected to a certain extent. But these noises were around on day one, and they've only gotten worse since then. The Mach-E GT is far from perfect. You will feel some bumps in that thing. But compared to the Model Y, the Mach-E GT is just more balanced, more composed, and more civilized. Tesla has been known as tech pioneers, but their ambition doesn't always result in real-world usability. Now, everybody has their own opinions about full self-driving and autopilot, but here are the facts. Over a year since we shelled out real, actual money for it, full self-driving is just not ready. And despite its name and whatever you've seen on TikTok, autopilot requires the driver to be fully engaged with both hands on the wheel in case the system just does something unpredictable. Of course, one of the hallmarks of owning a Model Y is this giant screen and its infotainment system. However, over the course of owning this Model Y for over a year now, we've found that compared with competing infotainment systems, it's pretty distracting to use. There are voice controls which you can use to reduce the distraction when you're on the road, but they're not all that accurate or quick. On top of that, the navigation is Google-based, and in the city that's fine, but if you're out in the middle of nowhere without reception, you're kind of at a loss, and your maps are just going to disappear. Now, there's so much cool stuff about this screen. The graphics look awesome, there's really interesting energy and charging data in there, there's games, there's music, there's fart mode. We don't need to talk about fart mode. The big, undeniable advantage for the Model Y is that it's part of Tesla's nationwide supercharging network. Almost a decade into Tesla's big product offensive, I think the network is the single most impressive feat that the company has pulled off in all that time. It's really easy to locate the nearest station, plug in, get charged, and be on your way. And it honestly boggles my mind that other automakers are still struggling to catch up or even seem interested in building a competing network. In a world that will run out of gas one day, that's an astonishing advantage. In the Mach-E, Ford pretty much copies Tesla's touchscreen. And yes, I said copies. You control most of the car's functions through these menus, although there are a few important distinctions. First of all, we just find the screen easier to use and easier to locate things than the Tesla. And you get a real physical knob. How about that? That helps to make no-look adjustments while you're driving. One more thing that would be nice is physical buttons for the climate control instead of hiding them all the way down here on the bottom of the screen. The Mach-E has wireless Apple CarPlay and wireless Android Auto. Now those systems are not even offered in any Tesla, wireless or not. That's a big misstep. We really appreciate the familiar interfaces, voice controls, and quick responses in those systems. And in general, we prefer smartphone integration over the native infotainment in most cars. Ford isn't nearly as ambitious as Tesla when it comes to full self-driving. But this car comes with Blue Cruise, which is Ford's new hands-free driving system. That combines adaptive cruise control with automatic lane centering. And it adds extra layers of security that, in our experience, make it feel seamless when in operation on the road. For that reason, we would elevate Blue Cruise a step above Tesla's autopilot. So, charging. The Mach-E GT gets the same onboard charger as the standard Mach-E. If you use a fast charging station, Ford says it can get from 10% to 80% in about 40 minutes. The Model Y does it faster, and it has a better charging network. Now, Ford says it has the biggest charging network in the country, but that's marketing speak. Ford doesn't have its own stations. They're counting partnerships with ChargePoint, Electrify America, and others. Now, those are easy to find, and Ford throws in some complimentary fast charging and roadside assistance. But it's confusing to ask people to look for different kinds of stations instead of just Ford ones. So, to put a wrap on technology and charging, we don't like to make a habit of crediting a company that consistently fails to meet its own range estimates. But Tesla sure pulled off the branding with flying colors. We think the ease of using its charging network is a big win for buyers. Tesla always said that they wanted to lead the charge, that other automakers would soon follow its lead, and that they welcomed the competition. Well, now they've got some. Driving the Mustang Mach-E feels like an occasion every time. It's a blast to drive on the street, and its braking, handling, and ride comfort are superior to that of our Model Y performance. However, the Mustang Mach-E GT comes with the worst 5-second rule in history. Deliberately holding back the power in a Mustang GT, let alone a GT performance, is super frustrating. Tesla doesn't ask you to do that, and its breathtaking speed doesn't let up. In the end, that's too much to overlook. And for that reason, the Tesla Model Y performance is our choice in this sporty comparison. But if it were up to you, what would your criteria be? Let us know by leaving a comment down below, and don't forget to click like and subscribe. Finally, if you want to read an in-depth article about the performance in both of these vehicles and how they compare, click the link in the description below.